Hey guys, Dennis back with a brand new video. Today I'm going to show you how to fix pop drywall seams. So let's get right into it. All right, and this is what I mean about a pop drywall seam. And this occurs, obviously from bad drywall work and from the house settling. All right, so going through this room here, I tried to avoid cutting out the old tape, and I tried to basically skim coat it. And you can see the lighter color here on the wall. This is the hump, right? So the only correct way to fix this is to basically V-notch out where this tape is here. All right, so some of the things you're gonna need obviously some drywall knives. You're gonna need some joint compounds, and what I like to use is this USG +3. All right, and then obviously you're gonna need some sandpaper and some other tools, and I'll show you those as we go along. All right, so the first step is to cut out or V-notch the area where the tape is kind of popped out here, and all you need is a utility knife for that. All right, so we have all of our joints V-notched out. That wall was totally fine. This wall was pretty good over here, even though you can kind of see the darker line in the middle there. And this one was pretty much good to right at the end there. This one I notched out all the way. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take our vacuum, we're gonna vacuum out all the joints, we'll clean up our mess on the ground, and then we're gonna mix up some of this Easy Sand 5 hot mud, and we're gonna fill that V-notch in. And that's the reason why we did the V-notch. If we just cut straight in, there'd be nothing behind there to grab that mud. Since it's a V-notch like this, it gives that mud something to sit into instead of just falling through the wall. All right, let's get these joints vacuumed out. All right, now we're gonna mix up our hot mud here to do our patches. This is prime, but it's not prime. There's water in this bottle. So instead of going back and forth to the sink, it's easier to just have a bottle of water or a little bucket of water handy when you're doing this. So we're gonna be using this Easy Sand 5. This stuff sets up really quick, so we need to make sure after we mix it, we get it in. And we're gonna mix it right in this mud pan. And then we don't need to use anything special to mix it. We can just kind of go back and forth and mix it with a 6-inch blade. Right? We don't want this to be too thin. We don't want it to be too thick either. Right? We want it to be workable, but also stay in the joint when we're putting it in there. I think we're pretty good here. It's like a really thick peanut butter consistency. All right, so let's start filling these V-notches in. So as you can see, it's a little damp in a couple spots, but for the most part, everything is dry here. I went through, I knocked off any high spots with my 6-inch knife, and now we're gonna be using this to do our taping. So this is basically the same as the 5-minute, but this gives you 90 minutes, so an hour and a half work time. And it's really easy to mix, and we're gonna mix it in our pan, just like the Easy Sand 5. And we're gonna put a coat on. We're gonna embed our tape, and then we're gonna knife over that. All right, we're ready to start taping. All right, now we're gonna talk about 2 different kinds of tape here. So we have this kind of mesh tape, and this is really good for patching. The only problem with this stuff is it doesn't really stick to drywall mud that's left over because it's kind of dusty. I mean, you can wipe it and get it to stick, but it's not as good as using paper tape. All we need now is our mud and some tape. We're gonna put a nice coat of mud on this seam here. We're gonna embed the tape in it, and we're gonna go over and finish it off. And then when you get in a corner where 2 tape seams meet, don't overlap the tape. Just bring it down right to the side of it, and then you won't have like a hump here, because the tape does have a thickness to it, right? If you double that up, it's gonna be higher, and you're gonna have to build up this other joint, that height, to be able to get rid of that. All right, so we're here on day 2. I let this all set up overnight, and we're gonna take our 6-inch knife and just knock down any high spots. All right, now for this second coat, we're gonna be going with a 12-inch knife, and we're gonna be using some regular premix mud, and I'm gonna thin it out just a little bit so it spreads on nice and smooth. Because we're using a 5-gallon pail of premix mud, we wanna mix all of that mud in there together and get a nice consistency. I'm using my drill on the lower speed setting so I don't fling the stuff everywhere. Look at the consistency of this now. It's perfectly smooth. So this is why I recommend mixing the entire 5-gallon. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take mud. I'm gonna apply mud along both sides. I'm gonna feather edge the top and bottom, and I'm gonna run down the middle. And then if I have any lines in here, I'm gonna try to smooth those out. And if I have any ridges like towards the outside, I'm not worried about those. I can sand those off because I'm gonna be sanding in between each coat. And I am no drywall expert by any means, but I'm pretty confident with fixing these common problems. I honestly don't like doing drywall at all. I would hire someone if I could, but this is a DIY channel, and I'm gonna show you guys how you can do it yourself without having to pay someone. So just take your time with this, right? Don't get frustrated. It is hard to do if you don't do it all the time. We're putting multiple coats on here, so don't get discouraged if this coat doesn't look good, because you can sand it, and we're gonna put another layer on top of this one. So there's typically a curve to it, one side or the other, and you wanna have the side that's curved and the side that's kind of sticking up higher. You want the side that's sticking up higher out towards you so you're not digging into the compound. So this one has a slight curve on the back side here. So we're gonna be using that. So our first 2 passes, top and bottom, are gonna be like a skim coat pass. And what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be putting more pressure on the bottom of the blade than on the top, and you'll hear that blade scraping against the wall. And what that does is that feathers out that bottom edge, so it's really thin. You'll hear that scraping there, and it may take a couple times to go over. Now we're gonna go over the top, and we're gonna press against the top edge a little bit more than the middle. And that's gonna feather that edge out. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna come over the middle now, very lightly, and smooth that off. And sometimes if you don't have enough pressure, you get little chatter marks on there. All right, so that's good enough for our first coat. We will give that a sand in between, and then we will build this out even more. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna finish up the rest of these. All right, so we have our second coat all sanded down everywhere. I went around, I vacuumed up all the mess, wiped down with a damp rag all the dust on the walls. We're gonna be putting our third coat on here. So now I'm gonna go through with a little bit lighter grit sanding screen. So I'm gonna use 220 here, and I'm gonna knock down any of the lift-off lines I have on here and try to get this blended into the wall. Now, any spots or pits or anything like that that I see in the wall anywhere after I'm done sanding, I will go over and I'll skim coat those again and give those a quick sand. And then all we have to do is roll some primer on all of these patched areas, and then we're ready for paint. And this is the primer that I'm using this Kills 2. It's interior and exterior. Seems to work pretty good for doing stuff like this. right, and as you can see, that pop joint is absolutely invisible now. So it is quite a bit of work, but it's totally worth it. And you won't have any of those ugly popped drywall seams bugging you anymore. All right, guys, so that wraps it up for today's video. I hope you found it super useful. If you did, leave a comment down below and let me know if you used my method to fix popped drywall joints in your house. Until next time, thanks for watching, guys.